Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. In today's video, I want to show you a way to make figure drawing a lot easier. So, the first thing I like to do is break down the form in some basic shapes. So I start with an oval for the head, kind of a wedge shape for the torso, and then the pelvic. And if you use that 1, 2, 3 method, you can really construct all kinds of different poses just with that starting point. And if you can draw an oval like this, if you can draw a bit of a wedge shape, if you had to break this down even further, it could be a bit of a box or another oval this way and an oval this way. But essentially what this is the torso and then the pelvic. And this will just draw like you ever played with action figures. Imagine the lower part of the action figure with the body and the legs ripped off. I know it's kind of gruesome, but hey, it happens to every action figure at some point in their lives. So essentially by doing that, there's our basic shapes. You know, you could really accomplish this with all ovals. And if you think of it that way, I think it helps you to go, okay, I got that down, I got that beat. Now what do I do? Now the thing that I do is draw the spine in there. You don't have to. If you notice, I kind of already started to draw these shapes with that kind of rotation or angle or bend to them. Whatever you feel most comfortable with. What I'm kind of picturing is that the chest line would come through here, solar plex down to the pelvic, and the front of the face, something like that. So that's what I was envisioning when I drew it. Now, what I'm trying to get, help people with is that if you can accomplish these basic shapes, the rest of it is much easier. So you've got the opening for the arms, and from there you have to study gesture drawing. The best thing to do is to do quick studies of the body, 1 to 5 minutes probably. Start off at 5, work yourself down, do 1-minute sketches of the body. And what you're going to want to do is just really study the way that the weight reacts off the body. So if somebody's pushing off this leg right here, the counterweight, maybe this leg's back. So you're only going to get this information by doing gesture drawings. It's not just going to come to you. Maybe if you just have the ability to kind of feel that process out. But most of the artists that I know that are good at stuff like this, they refine their abilities by lots of figure drawing, gesture drawing. I wouldn't even recommend drawing from other artists. The only reason why I say that is because you'll learn things about their style, but if they're making mistakes in their fundamentals, then guess what? You'll probably copy those same mistakes. So it's okay to have fun and study your favorite artist, but draw from life whenever you can and create your own studies, your own sketchbooks and whatever. So, same thing with hand poses. It's like, you'll start to see that there's lots and lots of different ways that the hand reacts from person to person and pose to pose. So you just have to create lots of sketches of that to get a feel for it. So we'll say that this is what we're after. It's a pretty bad sketch, and I probably shortened the legs because I ran out of paper there, like I always do. Seems to be one of my artistic flaws there. I can never judge how much distance I have at the bottom, and I try to start forcing proportions. So I'd probably make the leg down here, the leg over to here, being that it's more of a comic book 8 heads tall kind of scenario. Okay, so that's my quick little sketch. It's not impressive, it's not meant to be, it's just to get an idea down. And then I can study it and I can go, well, for one, he doesn't have a hand. That's not cool. But the arm's unnatural, maybe the pose is a little too accentuated, whatever. But by doing these quick studies, you can study your work and grow from that process. Okay, so we'll do the, I don't know if I'm going to call it 1, 2, 3 method or whatever, but 3 main body masses. And I don't know who might have came up with this, if this is even a thing. I'm just telling you what I generally do with my artwork. Okay, so again, the head, now I'm kind of picturing that's looking right at us. And then I want to do a dynamic kind of feel. I don't ever want my stuff to just be plain and standing completely upright because, well, I traditionally draw artwork and science fiction type stuff. So, there's not a whole lot of people just standing around in my imagination, I guess. They're always doing something crazy and elaborate, and so my drawings need to reflect that, obviously. Okay, so here's our 1, 2, 3 method again. And, if I had to draw the spine, I would say it's doing something like this. If I had to draw the chest, it's going like this. I should always try to twist the shoulders. If you think of the head, the shoulders, and the pelvic, they should, right here you see they're all lined up. Well, that doesn't make for as interesting of a pose. So to shift that, I'll put the one leg opening over here more. I'll try to twist this pelvic shape like this. Sounds kind of gross, but hopefully you get my meaning. Okay, so I'll turn that like that, and then maybe, a leg up. Now, one of the trickier things I think to get right are the way that the legs connect to the pelvic. So that, to me, is a whole nother study. So one day or a week, I don't know, or months, whatever it takes you to learn, you go in at it and you study how the legs connect to the pelvic. And you hit it hard for a month or whatever it takes you to feel comfortable with that. And that's what I do. I repeat that process over and over again for everything that I do. So I get these questions on my YouTube channel and my DeviantArt and just different stuff, Facebook, whatever. And, people are asking me, how do you draw this? What do you do here? They want me to give them all these details. And forgive me for saying this, but oftentimes when there's a lot of overabundant amount of questions about the process, it leads me to think one thing, and that is you're not practicing enough. And I don't know, I don't want to be mean about that, and hopefully I'm not being mean by the sound of that, but what I'm saying is you're not going to find the magic, the golden egg, I don't know what you want to call it, but the thing that's going to outweigh your practice or your hard work. You have to do that. That's the answer. So to all these questions, half of the answers are just practice and sheer volume of drawing. So I don't know how else to explain it other than that. I mean, I know it sounds depressing sometimes that you have to put all this time in to get good, but that's really what it takes. I would say behind every great artist are stacks and stacks of sketchbooks. So, or digital files or whatever whatever your style you're working in. So yeah, so unfortunately that's the truth of that matter. So just lots and lots of practice, and then you start seeing the things that are improper and why they're improper. Because at first it all looks kind of like you're on the right track. Take any artist and have them pan back at their work from years ago, and they'll tell you that, man, that stuff sucks. I don't know what I was thinking, But what that is the progression and the fact that you're now visually seeing things that you weren't seeing then. So that just comes with lots and lots of producing work. Yeah, so like even this, it's like, why is this head straight up from the, from the posture or whatever? I'm not saying it couldn't be that way, but it just doesn't look as interesting. So knowing that, let me see if I can adjust it and try to move it, tilt it, whatever. So I'll do that a lot too, where I'll sit there and take these poses and I'll try to rework them and see if I can make a good pose out of a bad pose, which is really necessary because the more you work professionally, the more you got to figure out ways to cut corners and save time. I work, a lot of my work is done in storyboards where the time intensiveness of it is insane, to where you have to like figure out how to hurry up and draw something really quickly and get it done because people are waiting on you to do some, pitch or animation of the work or whatever. So gesture drawing is very important for that. Like even that one, I know I'm blabbing here, so I probably went way over, and I don't know what this just took, but probably way too long for just a gestural concept. So, even though it's very rough and very crude, that's, just stacking these up is what's really important to start getting a good feel for the way the body works. So again, I'll do another one where I do, let's try a totally different pose. Let's try down here. And I always start with the head. I know another question that I've had recently a couple times was, do you always start with the head? I've read that it's not right to start with the head, and maybe it's not. I can't say that I do everything correctly or right, but I generally start with the head. I don't know why. I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's just what I do. So I try to start with the body, and there's definitely certain poses that I start with the abdomen, but it's a lot more rare. I seem to always kind of visually place what my character is getting ready to do by like even when I drew that head, I already had the vision that it was pointing down. I don't know why. It's just kind of where I'm at with the way that I envision my poses. But I'll tell you, like stuff like this, these are the tricky ones for me. Like for instance, I don't often see somebody squatting down, looking down at the ground, hands over their knees or whatever, maybe one knee like this. Here's the pelvic. I should have drew that in first, sorry. So there's the opening of the legs. And maybe this other leg is down to the ground and back. So I struggle with poses like this because it's not something I would see every day or even be able to find reference quickly or easily enough. Now keep in mind, that's why I have, what do I got? I got 3 cameras now. I got 2 cameras and I've got my computer camera. So this is, we got cameras on everything luckily now, so it makes it a lot easier. But this is why. If I get a pose like this that's too tricky and I just can't nail it, guess what? I'm sitting around taking goofy pictures of myself and my family trying to get the right pose, and I've trained myself to be able to draw, through that, because obviously, I work out a little bit or whatever, I'm a pretty buff guy. Not really. Anyways, but I can draw through myself and come up with a character that ends up, or a pose that ends up looking like a superhero. And you pretty much almost have to ignore a lot of the parts of the picture to even do that, because our proportions just aren't as hero-esque as we would like them to be. So, that just comes with practice. So like that one, it's not really that great, but I could work with it, and then I start making changes. All right, chances are at this angle, this shoulder, you're probably barely going to see it. So if you do see it, you're just going to see a little bit of the shoulder. So I pull that all the way in over to here and see how it helps that perspective. Oops. I think it does anyways. So just practice this technique where you draw the head, the upper torso, and the pelvic, and then add the limbs on, and you'll start to get a better idea of all the various poses you can create from that. And then obviously studying from life to add to that information. Just like if you drew a leg here, you do the upper leg, the lower leg, the foot, the knee, and you just really start to itemize parts of the body like that. So through the rest of this course, we're going to break down arms, legs, hands, things like that, and really try to pinpoint ways to, break down the body and draw it quicker. So now I want to show you a quick one in a foreshortened perspective, and here I'm going to use just blocked in shapes, kind of cubes, cylinders, but I'm going to draw it in a perspective shot. And by doing this, it simplifies something that would be pretty complex. If you're going to draw a body in this downward perspective, in this foreshortening, it gets pretty tricky with all the curvature of the body and the musculature and, what goes where. So doing something like this just essentially gives you a blueprint to work over top of. And I resort to this whenever I struggle in a certain area of my drawing. So if it's something that I'm comfortable with, then I probably won't feel the need to do this. But if I start to struggle, then I go back to the basics. And this is, to me, what the basics are. Block method, cylinders, wedge shapes, just easy to draw, easy to digest elements of the structure, whatever it is I'm doing. And you can see I can make changes to that perspective really quickly and easily. And I can check perspective because it's drawn to a vanishing point. where with body parts, it's kind of hard to envision that unless you're working pretty tight from a good reference photo. Then maybe you can check it against that, but sometimes you don't have that. So in this case, I go to the block method. And it does take some practice to get yourself to be able to draw like this and see into it and not just see boxes and cylinders. Like anything else, it will take some practice. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel. And like I'll mention many times over in this course, you'll just start to naturally skip steps. That's just part of what happens as an artist. The better you get, the more comfortable you feel, you'll just do away with certain steps in your work. And I don't even know, sometimes I think it's just involuntary or subconsciously, but you'll look back at your work and definitely notice then. So here I just soft erase it down. I've got enough of my blueprint work out of the way, my construction, and then I just get in here and I start to refine it, and I can start to think more about what the character looks like now, softening up the forms, giving some anatomy, some shapes of musculature. But I have that underlying glorified stick man to show me where my work needs to go, and again in a perspective view. So ultimately you're just able to break these things down and make it easier for you to carry it to the next level. And just repeat it. Try this with various angles. Another good tip for doing this and feeling comfortable with it is to actually take photos and break them down in the same method. So I'm not working from a photo here, but sometimes it's good to work from a photo, try these methods over top, and then you can see what areas hold true to the design process. And past that, just sheer volume, like I'll repeat over and over again in this course. When you sit there and draw this type of pose over and over again, certain areas are going to start to make sense that at first, you just couldn't kind of envision. Notice that the more and more I draw repetitive, patterns or angles, you just start to pick up on things. So it's really that repetition that's essential to getting better at this stuff. All right, so that'll about bring this one to a close. And in the next lesson, we'll be approaching how to break down arms. So I hope you'll join us for there. So let's proceed on.